Hey, Talent Warriors, welcome to another episode of the Talent War Podcast. I'm George Randle, your host, and stand by as we talk about it's a candidate's market. We're going to talk about the Great Reshuffle, the Great Regret, inflation, and the latest statistics to come out of Forbes magazine. So I hope you listen. You know, folks, we here at the Talent War Group try to keep up as much as we can on the latest and greatest statistics as we serve our clients. When we talk about talent acquisition, human capital, leadership development. But there's a great article that just came out that's talking about the tremendous vicious cycle that we're starting to see. And we talked on a previous podcast, we were talking about, kind of the Great Resignation. And we started to see the signs of that, during COVID. But now, if there is another normal being created and getting back into the workplace, it was something like 6 million people had quit their jobs over the last year and a half. It was something just absolutely astronomical. And there's just the weirdest thing going on, and it's a vicious cycle. And we're going to get to why it's a candidate's market, but I want to give you guys some cautionary tales too, both companies and candidates. Right now, with the shortage of talent and the Great Resignation, employers are raising salaries to attract more talent and creating job and wage inflation. Now, to us candidates, if we're out there in the market, that's really great. Hey, many times we're finally getting what we're worth and we're making the jump for salary. But I've warned candidates that I prepped and coached in career searches. Look, if you're coin operated and you're chasing the dollar, you'll get it. Oh, you'll get it. But it's like going to the grocery store hungry. Like I've said in our book, The Talent War, How Special Operations and Great Organizations Win on Talent. In many of the speeches and presentations that I've given, it's like going to the grocery store hungry. Those double stuffed Oreos look really, really good. So I'm going to tell you right now, with the Great Resignation, companies are throwing money at candidates left and right. So it's absolutely a candidate's market. But this is starting to create a really interesting cycle that both employers and candidates need to be aware of.
At Talent War Group, we truly believe that leadership is the single most vital factor in your company's success. There are many capable leaders, but finding the right one for your company and the role requires you to go beyond identifying a simple, functional, or resume fit. And this is what our executive search will do for you. We will go beyond what you're used to. Experience tells you where you've been, and character tells you where you're going. So instead of looking solely at a candidate's experience and the competitors that they've been at, we'll focus on their leadership traits, the optimal drivers for performance, and the potential for their success to determine who you should select. Because talent can't be seen, but you can assess character. We'll begin by evaluating your organization and identifying the success profile for that particular role. We'll help you design a process that effectively assesses the candidate's character attributes, those attributes that will help the candidate multiply success in your organization. We'll look at the team dynamics. We'll look at what's missing, what's needed, and what's been great before. Finally, once we find the right candidate, it doesn't stop there. We stay in contact with you and the candidate to mentor, coach, and develop, and to ensure success for the candidate and for your company. Yes, we're different. We know what drives performance. We know how to identify potential. You can get started by finding us at talentwargroup.com and let us help you develop your next generation of leaders.
With the inflation and the supply chain challenges we have and the prices of gas and heating oil, energy in general going up, the inflation is scaring people. And it's scaring people thinking now I need to earn a little bit more money because I've got to catch up. So the inflation scares them and they jump for more money. And, Washington Post said that right now, if you're a job hopper, you're very likely to get a 6.5% jump at a minimum. That's kind of the average. And so many people are getting 10, 15, 20, 25% increases just on their total cash compensation, or what we call on-target earnings for those people who are based and bonused. But if you stay at your job, the average is about 5%. So there's certainly this monetary incentive to jump to a new companies. And it's understandable, employees want more than fair pay. They want as good a pay as they can get. They certainly want to get their value. And I would tell everybody to absolutely do that. But with employers tackling the Great Resignation by raising their salaries and attracting more people, we're starting to see job hopping more and more and more. And it becomes a vicious cycle. So there's some things. The positive on the candidate side is that in my 25 plus years in the human capital space, I've never seen a market like this. If you are top talent, and even if you're average talent, there is no shortage of openings anywhere for you to earn a substantial increase by changing. And you might even get some new skills. So really, you're in the driver's seat, provided that you prove to the employer, that you demonstrate, that you articulate, that you have the character attributes, the experience, the skills, the personality, all of the things necessary to perform and excel in that role. Then you have the most leverage for earning a wage you probably didn't think was possible. So for those of you that your potential isn't being recognized, or you're distinctly unhappy, this is really the time for you to take a real good look at the job market. Now, the challenge is right now, the job market is filled with double stuffed Oreos, Ben & Jerry's ice cream, cheesecake, Dove chocolates. You pick your sweet, you pick your dessert, whatever that may be, it's all out there. And it's all going to taste good. But the question really becomes, is it good for you in the long run? Is it good for your career to job hop? Is this the right next best thing? Or are you being coin operated and chasing after this because of inflation? Now, I, just like everybody else, I'm concerned. It cost me over $100 to fill my tank the other day. And I get that. And we all have different expenses, different challenges, different obligations financially that we absolutely have to meet. So I understand the importance of better wages, higher salaries, higher bonuses. But my cautionary tale to candidates in this market, and the best way to say this, let me start out by saying this. First of all, 25 years in this, I know thousands upon thousands of talent acquisition professionals and their leaders in the talent acquisition organizations, a lot of HR leaders. And 99% of the people that I have worked with, and probably 99.5%, are very ethical, very people-driven employees, leaders. They're just good people to work with. They're in the business of finding great talent. But in this talent shortage, the people in the talent acquisition profession are really going to make each and every single job look as good as they possibly can. They're under enormous pressure. Their hiring managers, those managers, all the way up to the C-suite, are under enormous pressure to deliver their service, their product, whatever it is that they're doing. And so you're starting to see recruiters really step up their game and selling the great opportunities of a company, which is a great thing, because you want your talent acquisition consultants to really take pride and really, really sell the company. There are a few out there that are unethical and are going to sell it like a used car. I get that. They're all out there. Every profession has its good and its bad. But the HR and the talent acquisition functions generally, in my experience in 25 years, have been very ethical, very people-centric in what they do, and they want the right things for the right people for the right reasons. But there's no getting around with the shortage of talent. The pressure is on to absolutely make those jobs look really, really good. And, oh, by the way, now we're going to throw more money at you. So my advice is to candidates, two things. Number one, always remember, hey, you get out there in this market without defining success and what the next best opportunity looks like for you. What's going to fill in the blocks on your resume? What is going to give you a new set of competencies, a new set of skills, a new industry, something to round you out and make you even more valuable for the next few jobs that you may go to, or the next company, or departments within the company? Have you defined very clearly what that looks like? And when I say very clearly, I mean like stomping my foot as a professor saying, this is going to be on the test, write it down or type it in. I wrote it down when I was in college, but type it into your laptop, make a note, make a text, something like that. But it's really going to be on the test. Write it down. define success. Do not allow this to be some foggy mismatch of 5,000 thoughts in your head and some weird belief that, oh, when I see a good role, I'll know it. Because there's so many jobs that look alike, so many titles that are similar, so many companies that are doing, many of the same things or a degree or two off. And the job descriptions are going to look even better now in the candidates market. And the recruiters are going to be selling the absolute best things. So if you define success, it's easier for you in the interview process and the search process in general to be asking the right questions, to be digging into the areas about the potential of this role.
This episode is sponsored by Talent War Group, a management consulting and executive search firm. We help you attract, retain, and develop your top talent because we know that the most valuable asset within your organization is your talent. With services like leadership development, talent acquisition and HR consulting, executive search, executive coaching, and keynote speeches, we work with you to create talent solutions to your most pressing business problems. You can get started by finding us at talentwargroup.com and let us help you develop your next generation of leaders. Also, if you like what we're doing here at the podcast, please leave a review as it helps us support and continue this podcast. It helps us support people who are really dedicated to improving their business skills and excelling above all else.
As an example, one of the great questions is, hey, the last person in this role that was a rock star, where are they now and what are they doing? How did they get promoted? What made them successful? But you can now look at roles more clearly if you've defined success. And I promise you, if you're chasing money, in this market, you're going to get the money. But what we're finding across the workforce in the US, and it's now extending globally, is people got the money, but now they have the great regret. Because, culture's different. It wasn't the same. I got a little bit more money. I had a pretty good boss, but, I couldn't turn down an extra 5,000, 10,000, 25, whatever it was in base. So I made the jump. And that money that's helping you fill the gas tank and helping you financially is making you more miserable on the whole. All this to say, define success. And it comes from the military terms. I mean, you don't want to be going out on missions where you haven't defined very, very clearly, have a very clear picture and have articulated that picture of what success looks like. So define success. The money will be there. But take a look at companies. Have the broadest lens, the widest view on the market that you possibly can and think, when I grow up or in the next 10 years, what do I want to be? Where do I want to go? What kind of financial stability do I want to have? What level do I want to be? What kind of impact? What do I want to be doing? R&D, delivery, sales, customer support, managing, leading in some fashion. What is it that you want to do? And ask yourself, is this next high-paying job going to get me there faster? And is it going to help round out my skills? So candidates, it's your market. There's a lot of money out there for you. Go for it. With the caveat that if you have a great leader and a great company that recognizes your potential and is rewarding it at the highest level that they can, because companies are struggling and, yet we countlessly see, they hired somebody in there 10,000 more than me. The wage compression keeps me low. I get a 2 or 3% raise and somebody comes in from the outside, they're 15% higher. I get that. And it's frustrating. I get that. But don't weight your bet on the compensation piece. Just like we teach companies to look at the whole person, the candidate needs to be looking at the whole company. That extra money will not make you happier. And most importantly, it will not make you more successful in the long run. Now, to companies, you're going to have to really, really be careful. And this is why we say human resources is now at the tip of the spear, because these compensation issues are front and center. And there's so many things to balance because the cost of labor is always, almost always, if not generally speaking, the highest expense or cost for a company. So you have to balance that demand and that need to go outside of your firm. I caution everybody that I coach or any client that I'm working with, if you have to go outside and it's not for a brand new position with a brand new set of skills, credentials, experience, degrees, coding proficiency, programming languages, whatever, you haven't been developing what's in your team. And you should be doubling down on leadership development. You should be doubling down on leadership, building better managers, building better leaders, and retaining what you have and rewarding what you have. Spending the money on the talent you do have is going to have a higher ROI than spending it on something outside the firm. So look first to reward those people inside. Additionally, be very mindful, because if you're not thinking strategically, inflation is going to go away at some point. And I'm not going to prognosticate and tell you when it is and when it's going to lessen or if it's temporary or whatever the latest news headline will tell you. Their simple guess. But it's not going to last forever. And what you want to be very, very careful of as an employer, especially as the human resources function, coupling with the finance function, figuring out the wage inflation, you really need to be looking at how much over the market that you're paying now. I want to give you an example. This is it's a relevant example, or I hope it is. A long time ago, decades ago, during the dot-com boom, I was recruiting somebody, and this person went to a very well-known computer manufacturing firm. I own one of their computers. I happen to love it. And, oh, by the way, that company's headquartered here in Austin, Texas. And they paid this person, this was back in, I would have been 01, 02, somewhere in that neighborhood, $125,000 with no direct reports. Because of wage inflation, because of dot-com boom, because if you were going to pay top dollars to give equity and give stock, promise the moon, promise people that they're ultimately going to, have a retirement in 3 or 4 years, they promised the moon to win the talent. It's not unlike what's going on today. But 2 years later, that bubble burst. And I had the candidate come back to me, and he was looking for another position because the company had decided to lay off. And I asked him what his compensation expectations were. He said, well, I was making $125K, and here was my remit. I didn't lead any people, but I was responsible for some big stuff, and he really sold it. I give him credit. But he was looking for a 20% increase. Unfortunately, I had to break the news to him that in the very first instance, he was probably $35,000 over what his market value was. And he was shocked. He was absolutely shocked. And so he ended up settling, after some coaching, some advising, for something significantly less. He was still in the six figures, but less, took a cut, but he was so much more happy. And he more than made that up within the next 4 to 5 years, and then some, and was excelling, was promoted, everything, because he defined success and he went to the right place. But his initial offer was so far over the mark due to the dot-com inflation of wages that when he came out, he thought that that's what his worth was. So it's a cautionary tale to candidates and to companies. Don't get yourself so overextended. And don't get yourself into a panic buying situation. Look very, very carefully. Look inside your company first. Look to develop, to promote, to stretch, challenge those people who want to stay, who just want a bigger challenge. Look first inside. If you have to go outside to the market, that we've talked about that on several podcasts, how you do that, and we'll talk some more about it. But be very mindful of the pressure from hiring managers, directors, VPs. Hey, I need this person. If I don't have this person, I can't deliver. And paying them outside of the comp ratio and well outside the salary bands. Because at some point, cost is going to come back, and it's going to haunt your company, and that top talent that you just paid over market for, you're going to be put into a very difficult position. And so is that person. And then the candidate's going to be put in the position that when this wage inflation comes back, this stuff's just like a boomerang, folks. It's going to come back. Then make sure that you're not inflating too much so you don't have to cut that person at a later time. Also, so you're not driving further attrition in your company by creating this enormous wage compression or difference between two top performers, one who was hired 3 years ago and one who was hired 3 days ago. There shouldn't be that big gap. Get people aligned. There's a lot of people who were getting used to being self-employed that are now re-entering the market, and they have their choice of jobs, and they have their choice of companies. So in keeping this a short segment, the best advice, my experiences that I can share, if you're a candidate, absolutely define success. Do not be coin operated. Trust that you're going to get an increase, but make sure you're going to a firm that fits you, recognizes your potential, where you stand the greatest chance of being successful and building out your resume for whatever may come next within that company, within that industry, or external to your company at a later date. Be wary of something that's offering you a ton of money to come to them. And companies, take a really hard look inside your company. Look at those people who have been overlooked before, who want more. Double down on leadership. Double down on rewarding and recognizing and promoting and challenging those people within that have the character attributes of success. They are already assimilated. They already have networks within the company. And with coaching, with caring, thoughtful mentors, coaches, trainers, great leaders leading the way, it may take a while for them to fill the exact hole that was absent by a resignation, but they'll get there. And they'll thank you with their loyalty and their retention. Be mindful about paying over the market too much and establish some really clear guidelines of where and when and what circumstances, what your thresholds are for paying over market. This is a really tough time for talent on both sides of the equation, and there aren't any easy answers. But remember, you don't have to make a decision right now. And I know that I can't count the number of hiring managers who've come to me and said, I needed this filled yesterday. Always be recruiting, always be leading, always be mentoring, always be developing, always be coaching, and always be driving forward and thinking, what talent do I have? What do I need to develop? What do I need to add? And certainly what you may need to offboard in certain circumstances. And start getting thoughtful about your talent. The quote Mike makes me repeat all the time: treat your human capital with the same discipline, rigor, and focus you do your financial capital, and you're going to win. In candidates, money ain't everything. It's a lot, and I want to be paid what I'm worth, and I know all of you do. But be wary of something that's too good to be true and why they're having to pay that kind of money. And if you've defined success, you'll know what questions to ask to best define that opportunity for you to make a solid, rational decision if that is the next best career move for you. So I know this was a stream of consciousness and a little bit of rambling, but I wanted to put that out there for everybody. We all know it's a candidates market. We know there's a war for talent. And if you're in a company and you love your boss and you love your work and you're passionate about what you do, then we'll do another podcast on campaigning for how you can negotiate inside the company your own compensation. But take stock of all of the things that the company's offering you and decide if it really is time to make a move, because this market is going to change. Loyalty will be rewarded, or I sure hope it is. If you're a leader that's not rewarding loyalty and performance on that trust performance matrix, you're going to suffer attrition for a long time to come. But absolutely, without a doubt, it is a candidates market right now. But employers think long, think for the long game, how to do this best, how to take care of the people that have been performing for you, and when and why and how you should go to market. And with that, to all of you, I hope you have a great, successful week, a high-performing week, a productive week, and I hope you take time to find something to decompress. A lot of tough things going on in the world, but there's a lot of things that we should all be thankful for. And over this weekend, I hope you find one or two. And for today, I hope this was helpful and beneficial in some way. Wish you all the best, and we will see you on the next episode of the Talent War podcast. Hey folks, I needed to make a small correction on some data that I provided. In the candidates market, the Great Resignation, the Great Regret, I had mentioned 6 million people had left their jobs, and I think I said over a year, but in actuality, it was 4.4 million people quit their jobs simply last month. That's an astounding number. Wanted to make sure that you had the correction to realize the data that we're working with is unbelievable to demonstrate that this is a candidates market. And thank you for listening to the Talent War podcast, where we discuss all things talent, focusing on the talent mindset, the core belief that the only true competitive advantage you can hope to achieve and maintain is your talent. Join us for the next episode of the Talent War podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you heard, subscribe and please leave a review.
Connect with me on Talent War Group's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram accounts and send your comments and inquiries to media@talentwargroup.com. The Talent War podcast is brought to you by the Talent War Group, management consulting and executive search firm. We work with you, bringing services like talent acquisition, leadership development, executive search, executive coaching, seminars, speaking engagements, all to create talent solutions for your most pressing business problems. To get started, visit us at www.talentwargroup.com.